So Beetlejuice. Who saw Beetlejuice?
I wish I didn't.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah. I wish I did not as well.
The original one.
Same, me too.
Same.
And that was probably a bad decision because it made the sequel even worse.
Absolutely.
They completely changed her character. Who was the daughter, now the mum?
Lydia,
Completely different.
From frame one, I really tried to go in and be like, okay, I'm going to be even with this. I'm going to let it happen. And then the first frame was her, Lydia, the one character, and I rewatched the movie the night before as well. The one character that was saying, don't exploit the ghosts. They're people. They're nice people. Don't do this. Now she has an exploitive ghost show where she's hunting ghosts.
Afraid of them.
It's weird that someone changed from the time when they were 13 or 14 years old.
She was
That's pretty core. Like she knows ghosts. Like she's personally knows ghosts and knows that they're real. And the whole thing about the whole ghost hunting shows was that they were fake and trashy.
Yeah. And the context of her original character was that she liked the ghosts and she was a goth. She was unfazed by them. And the original one ends with her getting fully in, like she loves the ghosts and they're picking up and flying and she
part of the family.
Yeah. But now she's afraid, unhinged, her nerves are wrecked, and she's getting freaked out by ghosts and stuff like that. And I felt a completely contradiction of that character.
And unjustified. If they justified it later on in the movie, why she was like that, it would have been okay, but they didn't.
She's not getting freaked out by ghosts. She's getting freaked out because she's been seeing Beetlejuice again. That's why she's getting freaked out.
Well, no, because remember, she's taking medicine to stop herself from seeing ghosts because she doesn't want to actually have access to that anymore. Yeah.
But she's obviously been taking them for a while. And the one funny scene is when he digs the Justin Theroux, who I don't like, but when he pulls the pills out and he's like, I'm not going to pull these out. And then he takes one for himself. That was fucking funny. I was laughing.
That character was fucking, it was such a perfect, making fun of a male feminist who's saying all these things to get in someone's pants.
And he's kind of good for the role because I don't like the guy. At all. I think
he plays a good slimy.
He was good in Charlie's Angels.
My biggest issue was with Jeffrey Jones, who played the dad in the original. For those of you that saw the movie, they spent the whole film it was like a big homage to him, and the actor was a convicted sex offender. He literally was guilty of hiring a 14-year-old boy to pose for sexually explicit photos
in 2003. He was put on probation and then he broke it and got busted again in 2010.
You would think because of that, Hollywood would be like, oh, let's sort of yada 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 through the exposition and his backstory, like let's not mention him at all. But no, they show his image and his face multiple times in multiple ways. It was like a portrait, it was like a claymation. They had like a bunch of different ways to honor him.
Boys choir singing,
and even the children choir singing behind his body.
I think it was a troll.
To me, it seems almost like Hollywood is giving this like military send off, almost like, so sorry you got caught. We can't use.
Fuck the guy, put him up against the wall for being a. They kept him out. They didn't even call him, and his character is bitten in half. So he's walking around the afterlife with it's just his lower torso because he got bitten in half by a fucking shark.
And they used the claymation so they could show what happened to him and not have the character there, or not have the actor there.
But don't they still have to pay him for using his likeness?
That's a good question.
I don't know. I viewed it actually the complete opposite way of you, Chrissy. It was like they were able to use the character because obviously the character not being there becomes the impetus for them going back home and everyone going back to the house and basically the plot. And they were able to use his character without using the actor at all. Like Kevin Spacey, right? Do I think that because Kevin Spacey did this thing, that then in the next season of House of Cards, they should just shit all over the character of Frank Underwood and undermine everything he did? No, to me, that doesn't have anything to do with the character, I guess.
Yeah, but look what they did to Gina Carano. They canceled her, and then did they ever use her character again? Did they ever mention her character again?
Briefly. No, they treated her worse. You're right. Absolutely right. Not going to argue with you there.
To me, it's like really hypocritical. It's like this guy's doing the worst thing you can do, but to Hollywood, it's like, oh, it's like another one bites the dust. It's another.
He's still getting work. Up until very recently, he was still getting work.
Really?
Because he got really fucking light sentences, like super light sentences.
Like
that is completely sus. And I bet you that guy knows a lot of shit.
And it just seems like to me, even though they don't have his physical actual face, they show it in other ways, it still seems like the whole movie still revolves around this guy, which I found kind of icky. Winona Ryder, like, she can't speak or act anymore. I don't know what the hell happened to her. I'm sick of Hollywood trying to make Jenna Ortega happen. Like, stop trying to make fetch happen.
I don't think she was bad.
I like Jenna.
She's
I like
great.
Jenna.
Jenna already has happened. Like Wednesday was a massive hit.
Yeah, Wednesday was actually pretty good. I like that.
I like that they didn't try to. Obviously, they wanted to know this is Lydia's daughter, but they also didn't want to make her exactly like Lydia. Some of the traits, right, but not exactly the same. Because if she was exactly the same, it probably wouldn't drive her mom as crazy.
What did you guys think of Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice?
Great.
He stole the show.
The only bit of the movie I liked.
It was fucking great. That
I love
was
the practical
awesome.
effects. Like, visually, it looks and kind of reminds you a lot of the original. It's fun to look at.
The biggest problem with the movie is Beetlejuice is of its time. It's a movie for 1988 people and people living in 1988 when they came out, particularly people who get stoned. It's a fucking 420 movie.
I don't know. I argue that it could have worked if they focused the movie more. If it was not four different storylines.
That's where I was getting to. Is like they really
messy.
Put too many storylines. Like individual characters, like Willem Dafoe was great. Everybody was great.
Yeah.
Monica Bellucci, is that her name? Monica Bellucci.
Pointless character.
Yeah.
Fucking
Pointless.
You could have cut her completely, and the film would have been the same.
And she looked great, all stapled together. She still looks
She's
great.
a cool character
but
design.
all she does is walk around and suck souls and chase people and then die.
It was like she was building up to be a massive villain, and then it was just like, anywhere.
The fucking soul sucker joke, I was dying.
That was so good.
Which is like visually cool. Like they sucked the body up, and it was all
Danny
like,
DeVito's in it.
practical.
He had some shit coming out of his mouth, and that might be Tim Burton trolling some people with Penguin.
Yeah.
But the boyfriend, the little B plot with Jenna Ortega, I thought that was way more
did like that
interesting.
reveal.
Yes,
Yeah.
I wish that was the main story. They should have cut everything else. They should have cut the ex-wife. They should have cut the boyfriend. Even just had her and the mother go back to that house because their father died, and then she runs into the boyfriend, and then that storyline takes off,
And then they
that's
could have yeeted him at the end instead of.
And that is
kind
the
of early in
reason.
the story, yeah.
And that's the reason why Lydia goes, "Oh, I've got to go find her." That's when she calls Beetlejuice, and then you get Beetlejuice in the story. You don't have to do any of the other crap, and it just distracts. It's constantly distracting. It's like it's a schizophrenic movie.
My issue was the marketing.
It's way too much.
The marketing wasn't the movie that I got. I'd never seen the first one, so I went in completely blind.
Yes.
All I'd seen was the marketing, which had like Beetlejuice doing, I think he was doing like one of the hot sauce kind of clips. And then they showed the clip of when they're in like the therapy session with him. And I really liked that scene. And so I expected him to be going around haunting people, doing things to people, and them essentially trying to get rid of him or something. And instead, it was like an hour and 20 minutes or something before we even really went anywhere where he was. And then at one point, he's just like, you go and look for her. I'm going to do this. And it just seemed to be like to get him out of the scene because we never saw what he did. Yeah. And it was just like, well, no, you go and save her on your own. It's like, no, he's the best character. I want him in more scenes.
He disappears and then randomly shows back up, which is kind of like a Beetlejuicy thing to do, but it wasn't written very well.
The first movie, because Beetlejuice is like such a recognizable name now, for people that now currently watch it, they get surprised when they realize he's barely in the first movie.
He's not in the first movie very much.
Like he is not like the main character. He the amount of screen time he has, it's very impactful, and he's like such a wild, kooky character. But realistically, he's not in it for very much. I think what they did with this movie is that they wanted to put Beetlejuice in it more, and he is in this one more than he is in the first movie, significantly more. I think that's why you ended up having the Monica Bellucci stuff. Yeah. I would have been fine if this movie was about 20 minutes longer. I would have liked to see a better resolution between Jenna and her boyfriend's character, because just having Beetlejuice appear and win and he just immediately dies. I was expecting him to come back and do something. The fact that was the end of him, I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
They should have, Belushi and him
so well.
should have got together.
Yeah,
those are the two that should have got together.
Yeah. The resolutions in this film, it genuinely suck.
That's a Tim Burton problem, by the way. That is something that's in a lot of his movies.
Really?
Not everyone, but a lot.
They deal with the boyfriend just because Beetlejuice says passport rejected, you go to hell. And then Jenna Ortega picks up the book that no one could understand in the first one, and she flips to the exact page she needs, reads the exact stipulation, says, you broke the contract, and resolved like that. It's like,
what do you mean that no one
a lot of
Lydia understood it in the first one. She read through the entire thing. And
there's people can read it.
Explained it to the family. Because they didn't bother to actually sit down and look through it.
Well, everyone else couldn't understand it.
There's a lot of contrivances that happen where it's just like getting a person to that point. Like the way it is edited and paced, it's so scatterbrained that
that's very Tim Burton.
Well, they spend
if you watch the original movie, it's not scatterbrained. It's a very straightforward
Tim Burton was
movie.
a little... listen, his first Batman movie is an editing nightmare. I know everybody loves the movie, but he's much better director in Batman Returns. Much better
Batman
director.
Returns is the better movie.
The first Batman movie is really clunky when it comes to editing. The scenes, he has a problem with scene transition, and it happens in this movie with the fucking Soul Train shit. Feels like it's like dropped in the middle of something. Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
You know?
It's like the detectives. He spends a lot of time building up the detectives. They keep appearing throughout the entire movie, and then they're defeated with one word and don't do anything. Yep. Like you could have just cut all of them. I like the characters, but I just wish that they did something. Like there was a point to them actually existing in the world, rather than just being. Because it was even cool being freeze, but it never went anywhere.
I overall enjoyed the movie. I think it's not as solid or tight as the first one at all, but I enjoyed a lot of things about it. This is almost a movie where I think Tim Burton liked to do this so he could show you like the world of the dead and all these like different characters.
And that stuff was great.
Yeah, and it's almost like more about the world that he's created.
His
more
world
so
building,
yeah. Which can be frustrating at times.
Yeah, it's like it's almost there, but it misses. But it's still like worth going to see. If you like the first Beetlejuice, then definitely go see it. Like, I think it's for you. If you weren't into Beetlejuice, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, but I liked the periphery characters. I liked the underworld. I just didn't like the two main women that were the majority of the movie. They were like,
Winona Ryder was
written a story to the diary,
the worst
and we
thing
can actually
in it.
get on with the interesting bit.
Winona Ryder was the worst thing in it, which is, I mean, she's pretty good in Stranger Things, but she wasn't.
She's amazing in Stranger Things. I think that what they were trying to do with Lydia is like, they wanted to show somebody who, again, is kind of stereotypical, right? They're not going to show her exactly the same way as she was when she was 14 years old, when she was a child, right? She's now been through this shit. She lost the person she loves. She's trying to raise a daughter that also fucking hates her. These things are happening. And she's definitely kind of lost her way a little bit and like lost touch with like this kind of the shit she cared about in the beginning. And I feel like she was too weak for the Lydia that we would have known. For her to accept that dude's marriage proposal.
Yeah. Oh God,
I have a hard time believing that the Lydia we saw in the first movie would have done something like that. Yeah.
So strong-willed as a person, and I don't think that goes away. You could lose your way and, not be direction, but you don't lose what core values. And she completely changed from movie to movie. It was a different character altogether, just the way she held herself. And maybe that's Winona making different choices or whatever, but I just don't think it worked at all. For her character.
Well, the boyfriend was cartoonishly obvious, like exploiting her, right? And it made her look particularly dumb and weak for falling for his, manipulation when he's completely retarded and an idiot. And so it made her look really dumb.
Basically, all the characters are like caricatures, right? They are kind of like exaggerated people to the max, whether it's the dad, whether it's the stepmom and Catherine O'Hara, or whether it's, Alec Baldwin and stuff like that. They're a little bit all of them are exaggerated. I feel like it got a little more extreme, or maybe it felt a little more extreme in this movie because we're used to modern day filmmaking as opposed to back in the 80s. Everything was a little bit cheesier, a little bit cornier in general.
I almost think like it had like a roller coaster. Again, back to the schizophrenic nature of it. It was, sometimes it was over the top characters, but then sometimes it was trying to be like a realistic mother-daughter dynamic conversation drama, and then it would go back to being over the top again. And it's like the way that the original was, and again, watching it right before this movie was like stark differences. That movie was paced slowly. It had a focus to it. It was a little bit enhanced, like when they'd have a conversation, there'd be extra lighting to kind of emphasize the mood of the situation.
Can I jump
I feel
on
like
this
one
point?
just didn't do that as much.
Well, just to jump on the point what you're saying there, Garrett, about the first film. The first film had a very concise concept that it stuck to, and it was novel. It was like, what if instead of, ghosts tormenting people and you want to get rid of the ghosts, ghosts are being tormented by the living and they want to get rid of the living people? And that's just a quirky concept that the film focused on, and that's what made it work really well. You don't have that in this film. This film feels a little confused as to what it's wanting to be, and apart from being a sequel. And hey, you remember Beetlejuice, right?
And I think if Tim wanted to like showcase the world building of the afterlife, I think if you focus just on the daughter's story of her getting sucked into the afterlife and them having to find her,
if she was there a little longer,
like Lydia and Beetlejuice having to team up, even though they don't. I mean, she doesn't like him obviously, but he loves her, and that whole dynamic of just that. Trying to find her daughter, and they made that the entire movie. That could have been really cool, but it got so distracted from that story.
I like that they didn't just try to redo the first in terms of the why it was happening. I like the idea that this time the reason that Lydia, even though knowing who Beetlejuice is and knowing she's not supposed to do this, is forced to say Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. First time it was in order to save the family, the ghosts. In this one, it's because her daughter gets tricked by this serial killer insane ghost into swapping her life for hers. Right? I like the idea that they did switch that around, and I wish they would have started that a little bit earlier in the movie.
And got
more time with that.
The first time that they say Beetlejuice, 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 it's not her, it's her boyfriend that forces her to, he says it really quick to try to get her to get over this situation. When they could have cut that boyfriend, and then, like you just said, move that scene where she goes to Beetlejuice, move that way earlier in the plot, and then you could go with her and Beetlejuice together, causing hijinks or whatever.
I also would have liked it to be just a little bit different, different in a lot of ways. I think that people really wanted to see Michael Keaton's, Beetlejuice, and I think that maybe had that been the main focus, and then he has to maybe go into the real world, he has to go into the land of the living, and then that's where you can have those other relationships there. I don't know, I just feel like having more of that would have made it an altogether better film, because every scene he was in, he was dynamite.
Yeah, he's obviously a scene. So I don't know if I would like here's the thing though, if the entire movie was just Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, I don't know if I'd probably
it may be the little bit where you do get that you like. Yeah, maybe not overdoing it, but still.
And I like the idea. It was funny, at the end of the first one when he's like, I swore I will do this one time. I don't ever do it once. Whatever, I'll do it. I do.
Yeah.
Right. He goes and does that, and then he fucking is looking for the ring, and he pulls out the little sliced off finger. He's like, I promise, she meant nothing to me, sweetheart. You're the one for me.
Yeah.
and so we get the origin story for that. For his wife. I did like that little twist. But she was cool, but very unnecessary. Mm-hmm. You don't need her character.
You gotta do more with it if you're gonna use that character.
Yeah. But you always need a random stitched together woman in a Tim Burton thing, right?
Yeah, why not?
Beetlejuice is fine. It's fine. It's just
decent.
It's fine.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.